come up with the idea, we decided to do a cash transfer, a digital one. We reached out to Esther Duflo, Prize Nobel of Economics, that introduced us to the University of Berkeley and a lab working on social policy. So we designed a policy of a fully digital cash transfer. In a couple of days, I would say, we built a payment platform where we were able to send digital money to the populations, so to the most vulnerable. And it was quite at scale because the program at the end reached 920,000 people, which is 25% of total adult populations. So at the time, we didn't have a social registry. So what we did was we used the voter ID as a biometric ID to identify the people. We built the platform. So we asked the people to send a USSD code, and then on the database, we were able to identify whether they were part of, at the time, the social registry or the social file that we have. And when they were part, they will receive the cash transfer. Then moving on, we didn't know how long the pandemic, will last at the time. We're all in panic, and we say we need to have a sustainable way to prioritize the beneficiary because our current social file wasn't being updated for quite a lot of years. We didn't know the accuracy of the information that file had. So then we decided to experiment AI, right? And luckily we worked with Give Directly that helped us to fund an experiment where we are able to prioritize more than 15% of the beneficiaries using AI. So we built two machine learning algorithms. The first one used satellite imagery to draw a poverty map of the country and to rank all the districts from the poorest to the richest. And looking at the 10 poorest countries, we use the call detailed records from telecom operators and to try to draw a sort of pattern in terms of consumption to define the one that live below $2 a day. So we were able to identify a group of people, an individual. Then we contacted them using the USSD and asked them to apply for the program, and they got the social aid. One of the most interesting is, fast forward, moving on, we did our first assessments, of the effectiveness and efficiency of the program. We realized that the people that were selected through the machine learning algorithm was really the poorest of the people, compared to the one that was, initially part of the file, which show, how effective, the program has been. And the most important thing, the lesson that we got for the program, moving on the program, we say to ourselves that how to make it sustainable, this approach that we use during a crisis, how to prevent, to be prepared for the next crisis, right? So luckily, the program gained a lot of publicity. So we got funding from the World Bank, $100 million, to build a social resilience, social policy resilience program for all our communities. So we're extending the program to all the Togolese poorest people, and we decided to build a social protection information system that rely on three things. The first thing was the biometric ID. So we launched, and we're just about to finish out, a large-scale registration program to register all the Togolese populations with a biometric ID. We rely on the payment platform that we built during the COVID, to USSD payments, and we are developing a social registry, something that will then be dynamic, that will segment the population. So at any point in time, we know exactly who are the poorest, and if we need a targeted policy, we're able to reach out to them. So, and all of that have been possible because, during the COVID, we implemented that program. And we're really trying, now that, we're moving, and we built a data lab in partnership with the University of Berkeley to implement those kind of experiments. So what we realized also at the time, we didn't have the capability, so we have to rely on external capability and experts from Berkeley. So now we're building that in-house with our own data scientists, with our own tech team, and trying to leverage the benefit of AI.
Fantastic, thank you. And that's such a good case study of how a country like Togo can move quickly, learning during a period of COVID. And I think the lessons from what you've developed are very broadly applicable. Moving on to Osama, from your work across India, what are the most important lessons about how digital public infrastructure can empower communities, and how should policymakers design these systems to ensure AI benefits reach rural and marginalized populations?
Okay, so very complex to explain, because when we talk about the masses, so just for the sake of everybody, Digital Empowerment Foundation works across the country and now in close to about 3,000 locations, with a simple formula that all the requirement of the people who live in villages, their requirements first layer is information based, right? Trusted information, whether it's access to information, access to health, access to doctors, or access to market, or access to your own money, or everything is based on information. So therefore, and digital is an infrastructure that can flow the information, but trust is one of the biggest things. So we have this intermediary cadre across the country, who actually serves people through either you want to have your payment done, or you want to make payment, you want to sell and buy, you want to access your entitlements, and so on and so forth. So in this entire piece of learning is one, you need a human loop of trust. That's the most important part, howsoever digital you can make, because the trust will come at the end of it. The second most important thing is that if you want this information to go to them, you cannot do a one-way highway. You cannot consider them only as a consumer to provide information or sell your product. You also have to create a link which can buy their products and their knowledge and their wisdom and their products and the services and everything. Then it's a two-way process. The third most important thing is that you cannot push everything the way it should work. You cannot say that everything work on Intel or Google or AI or whatever, right? Because the consumption of technology has to be frugal and affordable and very basic. And that is always, whatsoever technology you develop, the real requirement is very basic. And that is what we call as digital public infrastructure. And that is the learning, is that if AI is getting into becoming the pie in the big game of public infrastructure, the digital content must be reliable, must be ethical, must be serving, must be not capitalist, must be not biased, must not be all those things that we are fearful of. And that's what the learning is. And that learning comes from them. So your design has to be bottom up. It cannot be designed in Silicon Valley and then you start pushing and telling that this is the technology, even though you are hallucinating when you are searching on ChatGPT, you still accept it. That's the learning. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. And so much of the conversation today is dominated, I think, by a few voices, including from the labs who are developing these technologies themselves, and we need much more from the ground up to influence this debate. So I think that point is well made. Stella, moving on to you. As AI could potentially concentrate wealth, how, and I think we'd want to avoid that concentration, but if that happens, if wealth gets concentrated through AI, how can direct cash transfer programs serve as an effective redistribution mechanism? And what evidence have you seen from your work that unconditional cash transfers can help workers and communities adapt during economic transitions or shocks?
Thank you, Adrian. Before I get into answering the question, I'll also introduce Give Directly a little bit. For those who don't know, Give Directly is the world's first and largest organization dedicated to cash transfers to people living in extreme poverty and in crisis. And so we believe, in a version similar to the Digital Empowerment Foundation, we believe that recipients deserve the right to decide for themselves how they will respond when there are shocks, how they will adapt, what change means, what the transformation of the economy through AI means at the last mile. This is not something that we can over-engineer in centralized rooms in Delhi or DC or other places. This is something that requires all of us to participate and have agency in this moment. Give Directly has worldwide delivered about $1 billion, I think that's about 10,000 crore rupees, to populations across the world, including in sub-Saharan Africa. And our reaction to the debate is that there is a lot of talk about what is the future of work in the AI era, what is the future of jobs? And we think that actually the emphasis should be more on what is the future of income. And when we talk about policymakers and we talk about the responsibility of governments, What is important is how do we set up a minimum floor so that when the shock comes, whatever form it might take, whoever it affects, that, as I said earlier, those who are vulnerable are not left behind. And in the context of creating a minimum floor in the economy, cash transfers are the most evidence-backed intervention for poverty alleviation that exists. And more than that, in terms of the recent evidence and recent research, and especially the experiences since the COVID-19 pandemic, both here in India and worldwide, large lump sum cash transfers have a transformative ability to enable people to decide for themselves some kind of productive investments that they can make, start new businesses, transform, migrate, change, adapt in ways that are suitable to the local context, to the individual context, as well as to the country context as well. Cash transfers are a nuanced policy tool. When people hear about the work that we do, they think that it might be easy, it's a blanket statement, but it is as nuanced as a cash for work program, as a voucher program, and it needs to be carefully designed, taking into account the country context, taking into account the policy objectives, and weighing the pros and cons of lump sum cash versus recurring cash, and the serious trade-offs that occur when you decide to target one group or saturate or otherwise. And so it is a sophisticated policy mechanism that is underutilized, and in particular, lump sum cash is underutilized given the recent evidence that it can support resilience, it can support transformation. And not only that, it is dignified, it is appropriate, and we have the entire payment architecture of the private sector, of the remittance industry, of UPI in India, which is doing incredible things, that can bring cash to the last mile. And so as we talk about AI and a world that invariably is going to concentrate wealth in some places, we need to have a counterpole coming from policymakers, coming from governments, to be able to raise the income floor and ensure those who are living in extreme poverty finally have the opportunity to exit. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. And I love that reframing from the future of work to the future of income. I think that's very helpful for sort of imagining different possibilities and different futures. So moving now on to Sampath Jain from BCG. What are some of the findings from BCG and Niti Aayog's new report, Roadmap for Job Creation in the AI Economy? What specific policy interventions do you recommend for countries to simultaneously prepare workers for displacement while creating new opportunities in the AI value chain?
Yeah. So I think when we started this work with Niti Aayog, we actually prioritized the technology sector for our thinking because that's the one that's in the news the most of getting disrupted. So we prioritize that, but I think the thinking should apply, the framework should apply in other sectors also. Given we're talking about AI and jobs, I think the simplest truth that we all agree on is yes, AI will impact jobs, right? There is no debate about that, and especially in the technology sector, we are seeing roles like the junior engineer, software engineer, or the first level customer support executive. I think those jobs are at a risk of getting disrupted. What we are already seeing at scale in the technology sector are productivity claims of 15 to 20%, and that's also a revelation that it is actually 15-20%. It's far from the kind of claims we see about 50% or 80%. I think even with the technology curve that we are in the midst of, we believe that this is going to reach 30 to 40% by the end of the decade. So that is a given, right? And that is what gets highlighted in all the news items, all the headlines, and all the fear mongering. But I think what does not get talked about enough is the positive side of AI, which we looked at. I think when we saw, I think AI actually has a humongous ability to create jobs, and we are starting to see trends of that. Even World Economic Forum in its recent report called out that they believe about 60 to 70 million jobs getting disrupted, but about 170 million new jobs that can get created using AI, right? And we actually wanted to double click and see, hey, what are these kind of roles that are coming up? And so the framework in the thinking that we applied was the 3Ws thing. We looked at how work will change for the technology sector, how the worker is expected to evolve. So what are the skill sets they can let go of? What are the new skill sets they will need to imbibe? And then what will be the workforce of the future? Will the pyramid look similar? Will the junior to senior ratios change, etc., right? But from all of that thinking, I think when we evaluated and looked at how things are going, I think there are three kind of AI roles that are coming up, which is real today. First is enterprise AI. So your AI product managers, your AI ops engineers, your prompt engineers, all of these roles are big already. They are being hired for by the largest technology companies in the world. And these were roles that did not exist a few years back. So these are all new roles that are getting created. Second is frontier AI roles. Frontier AI roles are, at the bleeding edge of technology, so at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity, at the intersection of AI and haptic technology, at the intersection of AI and quantum technology even. These are smaller roles right now, but they're growing really fast. Like in the 7 to 8 months that we took to study on the report, the number of jobs in this category already had, gone more than twice. And so it's the number of job openings on this frontier AI is growing really, really fast. And then the third is AI for AI roles. The scientists and researchers and engineers who are actually thinking about the next version of agentic AI, right? What will be the newer agentic architectures? What will the next LLM look like? And all of those. On this, again, it's a smaller category today, and it's heavily biased towards the Western world today, but we do believe that there's a lot of innovation and newer roles opportunities coming up in this sector in the Eastern world, right? And so I think, as I said in my intro, I think the question for us is not about how AI will let go of jobs. I think it's more about how the global South gets its fair share among the opportunities of jobs that AI will create. The key challenges when we studied India, especially, was the stock problem, which is to say our engineers are not ready, who are employed in the industry. They're not being trained fast enough. They're still used to the way they are they've been working, and the reskilling training programs in the industry today are not fast enough, are not comprehensive enough to prepare them for the future. Second is the flow problem. The newer workforce that gets added to every year to this workforce, which are our college graduates. We don't have AI integrated into the curriculum properly. We don't have enough AI PhDs that are coming out every year in India, and I'm assuming in other developing economies. We don't have AI educated teachers plugged into the curriculum. So that's the second biggest challenge. And then the third is just the supply-demand gap, right? There are a lot of great researchers India is losing because they're moving out, because they have the right incentives, the right compute infrastructure, the right data sets, etc. And so I think, to your point, Adrian, the policy interventions we came up with were actually fivefold. One is we have to become a global magnet of AI talent. China did it recently with their talent visa program. They were able to successfully attract back a lot of Chinese talent that had gone abroad. And similarly, India needs to retain and attract global talent that is at the forefront of AI research. To do that, we will need the right incentive structures, the right infrastructure, of course, but that's one. Second, we definitely need to do a revamp of our AI curriculum in our school education as well as college education. In India, yes, you can, maybe the top tier colleges, which are the top 1-2%, they may have integrated AI curriculum, but even there we don't see enough AI research projects happening, and this now needs to go across all of India colleges, which is a huge task in itself. So just integrating AI curriculum well. And then third is participating and working with the industry to actually create the reskilling programs that are needed. Fourth and fifth are just absolutely creating the compute infrastructure and providing access to the leading forefront researchers. Fifth is making sure all the right data sets are in an open source environment and available to the researchers for doing that work. But through these 5 interventions, which are, we believe India and maybe other global South countries can actually participate in the job economy that's going to open up. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. And you can, anyone can download the report. It's available, Roadmap for Job Creation in the AI Economy, which I recommend. Osama, I know you need to leave in a second, so if you need to leave, please do. Rebecca, moving on to you. So given the unpredictable nature of AI that we've all acknowledged, how can multi-stakeholder collaboration, bringing together governments, private sector, civil society, and effective communities, help to ensure that AI leads to prosperity?
Thanks very much. So I have this honor and privilege to lead the Partnership on AI, which is 140 organizations globally across 18 countries who have decided to come together to solve and work on some of the most pressing and complex challenges. And there is probably one that is not more complex than the future of work. And the interesting thing about our organization and multi-stakeholder work is it brings together very large companies, frontier labs, technology companies, but large financial services and enterprise companies, together with academics and researchers at universities and institutes, together with civil society organizations. These are points of view that are often quite different, and it can make for some uncomfortable conversations, and yet those are fundamentally the conversations we need to be having. And about 5 years ago, our community identified that they wanted to begin to pull together some work on the future of work. And across all those sectors, with all the different interests and incentives about what brought them around the table, they agreed on one thing, and that was that if there is any topic in the responsible AI space that feels more inevitable, it is the future of work. We even call it the future of work. You know, you think about all the other topics we focus on, like safety and bias and transparency and explainability, but we call it the future of work, as if there is this inevitable path forward with regard to how AI will replace and automate jobs and humans. And the fundamental decision of that group was, we need to break down that assumption and say, no, we have a choice. This is similar to what you were saying. We have a choice in determining how AI will impact the work. And that means we need to create spaces where employers can come together with labor organizations and worker coalitions, and individuals and workers can come together as part of that group with policymakers and otherwise. And so out of that work came a very deep set of what we called shared prosperity guidelines, which created space for each of those perspectives to better understand and articulate the costs associated with AI automation and the opportunities as well. And so this notion of developing job impact assessments to better understand potential impacts on different job categories, and then coming out of that, how do you just create space for more worker well-being focused initiatives? Yes, productivity and efficiency will come, but how do you do that in a way that centers the human needs first? So we have our shared prosperity guidelines are online, they're available. We're now in the process of developing some really interesting use cases from all of those different perspectives about how they have been deployed right now in real world settings. And so as we move into this next phase of AI development, I think it's going to be even more urgent that we create space for these types of multi-stakeholder conversations to happen, and that they happen in an international context where we can learn from each other about how we will plan for and better understand the nuanced effects and impacts moving forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thomas, thank you for waiting patiently. What are some of Switzerland's perspectives regarding AI and social inclusion, particularly for reference for the Global South?
Yes, thank you. I'll start with a few particularities of my country that may not be applicable one-to-one to any other culture, but may serve or have served as an inspiration in some ways for others. So Switzerland historically is a bunch of poor farmers living in the mountains, with their most important wish is to be free, not to be told by anyone else what to do. There are two main dangers, or have been two main dangers to this. One is if an avalanche of snow, of water or stones fall on your head from the top of the mountain, or if one of the kingdoms or monarchies around us would try to capture us. There's only one way to survive in this context, is to get together with your neighbor, help each other. You don't even have to understand or comprehend or be friends with each other, but when a natural or a human danger comes next to you, you will not survive alone. You can only survive if you get yourself organized, if you know the valley better than the enemy, or if you, and so this is something that has shaped our culture. If you want to be free, if you want to determine your life, you need to cooperate with the people around you. You also need to treat them nicely, because otherwise they may not help you if you're the one that is more in danger than them, and so on. So this And that has also shaped our bottom-up approach of the country. You can't wait for somebody in the capital to come and help you. If the avalanche is coming, you need your neighbor to be there. So you have a tendency to organize yourself bottom up. And that also, you earn the trust in the capability to organize yourself bottom up. Be more agile this way than to wait for your king to solve all your problems. And that has shaped a lot of our thinking, also with economic transitions. And it has also helped us to create structures where you create incentives for political opponents that are forced to work together. We have an all-party government, from socialists to right-wing populists, that share the part of the same government. Also in the parliament, we have football teams with people that fight each other politically, but in the end they go and play football or play music or have a drink together. And this is something that built on mutual respect, and also try to make sure that the majority, we have a cultural majority which is German-speaking, then we have French-speaking minority, a much smaller Italian-speaking minority, and a very small minority of another language, which is 30,000 people. But we try to take care of each other in a way that it is acceptable to all to live together. And I think this is one of the core elements that helped us to find solutions, find pragmatic solutions, usually bottom up. They usually don't come from the government, to cope with developments. And just one nice example is that where there's lots of comparison with the Industrial Revolution, Switzerland was lagging behind. The Europeans were thinking about building railways around us because we were nowhere. And then when it started, the textile workers that were working at home peacefully, they asked the government of Zurich, the local government, to prohibit factories. And Zurich said, we can't prohibit progress because this is more efficient. So the textile workers went and burned down the factory. This is 200 years ago. They couldn't stop the progress. But what made a difference is that they organized themselves as a labor movement, as a political labor movement, and asked for a fair share of the productivity gains, so that not just the owner of the factory got everything and they lost all quality of life that they previously had. And the good thing was that the political parties that represented the interest of the factory owners and the farmers accepted there's a new group of people and they also have a right to live in dignity, and they included them. It took them some time, but after a few decades they included them in the political system. And this understanding of no matter what happens, you need to be able to discuss in your society, and now with globalization you can't do this just only on national level, it's a global issue. You need to discuss about, understand what is going on and what is a fair reaction to it, so that no one is left behind. And again, this is we need to understand what is going on, develop scenarios, and then discuss them together and say, okay, what is acceptable to all? If this happens, how should we react? And try to get a significant, strongly coalition of the willing together to actually go in such a direction. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've heard a range of perspectives there, but some very good common themes. I don't want to eat. We did start a little bit late, and I don't want to eat into the next panel's time too much. But I'd just like to ask the panel a sort of quick fire. Having heard the range of perspectives we've heard, a diversity of thinking, what's one concrete recommendation that you would give to policymakers in the Global South right now? We'll go back down the line. Cool.
So being a policymaker, I will give myself that advice. I think, especially in the Global South, no one can do it alone. I think collaboration and partnership is the key things. What we did with Novici, we're willing to share and to share it to other countries that might be interesting. We're also willing to learn from the other countries, and in terms of digital public infrastructure, in terms of AI capability, and so I think collaboration for sure.
Collaboration, thank you. Stella.
I heard a lot of resonance in some ways from the other panelists in terms of empowering the last mile and meeting the moment in ways that are not too centralized. And so one recommendation I do think makes sense, and inspired as well by our work with the government of Togo and the Novici platform, is that I do think that policymakers should be thinking about building out the payment pipes. It is inspiring to see the developments that have happened in India with UPI and how far it's come since COVID. Really inspirational for me as someone who saw it before then. And not just developing payment pipes in the traditional way, but applying AI for good to be able to dynamically, adaptively build the shock responsive social protection systems that the government of Togo is building at this point, because we both need to build resilience, but also enable ourselves to be ready to adapt for what comes. Which industries is it going to hit? Who's it going to hit? And to know how to pivot and twist, because we do live in an uncertain world for many reasons that we all know. Beyond that, I would also add that when it comes to using cash as a mechanism and as a policy tool, it's important that we think about who are we including and who are we not. When we talk about work and the future of the work, who are the people that are working? It's the informal workers, certainly in India and also other places, who are not part of the formal government systems, who will sooner or later also be affected by what is happening in this moment. And when we have a program like cash transfers, as I said, that may not cause the shifts in how people work, but it can cause both the security of income that is required to be able to make the leap to new industries, to new types of work, to new drivers of economic change, as well as build the core resilience so that when shocks come, when there are changes and losses of income and changes in like the macroeconomic structure of the world, that individuals and households and communities are better equipped to save, better equipped to build productive assets, better equipped to be entrepreneurs and to start new businesses that are more relevant in the current era, and better, as the ambassador said, to band together in a decentralized fashion and decide what makes sense at the last mile, whether that is migrating, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's saving, whether that's stopping to work. A sort of basic income that serves the extreme poor is how we can get there.
Fantastic, thank you. I can see the next panel are eager to start, so I'm going to be unfair and force a sort of 10-second answer from our last two speakers. What's the one policy recommendation you'd offer, Samba?
I'll just say that I think it has to be a bottom-up initiative. Maybe just rethinking a skills to job compact for the 5 industries which employ the most folks in India. What are the future skill sets that will be required? How will we train for it? And how will you create demand incentives to hire locally?
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca.
Policymakers need information. They need better data about what is happening right now. Prioritize putting in place multi-stakeholder approaches that can provide early warning signals as to what effects are happening. Make sure these multi-stakeholder processes are designed with workers, not for them, but with them engaged at the beginning so their voices are heard.
Brilliant. Thomas.
Thank you. I would say also education, but also fight corruption, because if you make sure that every country has talents, that your talents, no matter where they are born, in what society, what color of the skin and so on, if talents have a chance to succeed, then this is something that every country or every society and every economy benefits from. If you have to fulfill codes in order to succeed, you normally don't get the best ideas and the best people to make it.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, that's been a really rich conversation. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Adrian, and thank you to the panel. As an expression of our gratitude, I'd just like to give out the mementos, and I'd request everyone to please leave the hall right now. We have another session starting in a minute. Thank you. Thanks a lot.